right, Sturdy for 30 this week. We're excited to have our new Illinois football coach and former reality television star, Bret Bielema, join us. Coach, you've been 60 days in your tenure as Illinois football coach. Growing up in Illinois, coaching against Illinois, you know a lot about the program, know everything. But has it met your expectations? Is there anything that surprised you in the first 60 days?
You know, it's a great question, Brad. I would say several things on several levels. You know, I've been very, very excited about, getting in the building and being around our current roster. Because of the COVID, we've had limited access and how many times we can bring the whole group in together. But I would say individually had a lot of great meetings, a lot of great conversations. A number of guys came back. I think we've been well noted now that we actually have more super seniors back than anybody in the country, which I think is a positive that allow these guys to continue to build on their time here. But I would say that was probably the best thing out of the gate. And then recruiting, I think we added a couple of guys in there, both traditional high school student athletes, as well as a few grad transfers that are really have an immediate impact on our program. And then really the staff, I really was able to sit here because of the COVID rules. I was able to sit here in Champaign, bring guys in, kind of focus on one job at a time and really play off of one another and build that to a crescendo that my last couple hires, I think, were some of the best things we could add. And so those together, I think our current roster, the addition of our new roster and our current coaches that I was able to bring aboard have been really a highlight of where we're at.
And the staff that you brought in guys with a ton of college experience, guys who've, been coordinators at other, coordinator from Missouri, which always bodes well for Illinois fans when you can steal a guy from Missouri, right? They like that. So has there been any, what enabled you to maybe do that? Obviously, Illinois is not a football program that's maybe had great success of late. So what enabled you to be able to get those guys?
Well, I think each guy was an individual story. I've been thinking about the college football for a long time. It's something I've been anxious to get a part of, since I left the college game and been in the NFL the last 3 years. But case by case, Tony Peterson was a guy offensively who I've known for, 20 plus years, gone against him, competed against him, have grown in a relationship professional business relationship, but also a personal level as a friend that I was able to see him work. Tremendous family man. He holds all the values I feel to be important, has had a tremendous amount of success with quarterbacks in every program he's been involved with, and had really the effectiveness of being able to move the football, run a game, throw game, as well as, produce complementary football wins. So that was a big part. Ryan Walters, different story, came against him as a competitor in the SEC. At Missouri, actually was a part of a team that was my last game at Arkansas, so saw firsthand what he's capable of doing. But also then to build on that, to bring in, I really brought in a couple guys, but I only offered the defense coordinator job to one person, and that was Ryan, and he took it, and we've been running ever since. Then to add, like you mentioned, Andy Boo and also Kevin Kane, both guys that have been defensive coordinators in college football that now they add into the room with Ryan that I think is great. Two former players, and Terrence Jameson and Aaron Henry. That's kind of cool. The first time I've ever been able to do that in my coaching career, to bring along former players that walk the walk. I was in their living room recruiting them, to in their team meeting room coaching them, and now to be in the coaching room now coaching them. So it's been a full pleasure. And then offensively, guys like Bart Miller, who had been on my staff at Wisconsin. The best thing I could say about Bart is, he's a guy that I've seen his career grow and grow and grow, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on him. And that opportunity came to be in his home state too. And he grew up in Nebraska, but played high school football in Illinois, a tremendous asset. Corey Patterson, who was a holdover from our staff. Didn't know him from Adam, but just that energy, that attitude, that demeanor, his coaching ability, the upside that he was going to bring us on the football field. Really excited to bring him. Ben Miller is going to run our special teams, comes from Air Force, and tremendous amount of talent. First-class individual, great family person, a tremendous amount of respect what Troy Calhoun has done at Air Force, and Ben's been a huge part of that. Played in the NFL himself as an offensive lineman, actually was a GA here at Illinois, just an added bonus. And then the last guy, George McDonald, to bring the culmination at the end with a former Illini football player that someone shared the field with Josh and was able to bring in full circle an alumnus to the coaching staff was very important to me.
Yeah, George McDonald, I have one of the strangest stories. I was They were cleaning out the lockers back in like 1996, and I have a pair of George McDonald Ashford shoes from there. They have his number. I was like, I don't know how I got them, but somehow I ended up with those. So weird small world, I guess. So you mentioned the 2021 the super seniors, and I think that probably those are really important for you for next year, being able to compete. Does that change maybe the outlook for next season for you guys?
We'll see. The proof will be in the pudding, right? I think what kind of swayed me in that moment was, to be quite honest, when Josh picked me up in Jersey and we went to the Penn State game that night, and I saw those guys fight and compete. And the next day it came full circle. I brought him in the team meeting room and talked about where we stood moving forward. And I basically made a comment in that room that, listen, if you're in this room, I now your family. You've already been here. I've been a part of other places in the past, but now I'm coming into this family, and anybody that's in this room, you're invited to come back here and help us win as many games we possibly can next year and see where we can take it. And with that, I think a lot of them jumped on board, to be quite honest. I think Kramer and Palcho were two of the first to sit in my office and say, yeah, we're in. And then I kind of just kept working my way down the list, and not in any particular order, just kind of as they came up. And it was important for me to realize and tell them, listen, I'm coming to be a part of your family. Now, I get it. I'm at the front of the room now. I get to make decisions and do things, but I wanted everybody in that room to know that we all loved on the same level, and that, this is the Illini family from the get-go, and that's the way we're going to start.
So as you get ready for this first game in Memorial Stadium this fall, I go back historically, and you may remember this, like, Mike White, first game, he comes out, first play, they throw it deep, and he gets a standing ovation because people wanted to see that. I don't know what that's going to look like. You don't have to sell it, but do you have a plan for that first play? It's going to sell. Maybe let's throw it to the tight end because people have been complaining about that. Don't run it too deep. I mean, what is going to be the selling? Do you have a plan to just really get people bought in that first play?
Well, there's a plan that's a lot bigger than the first play. So the plan is built to one to sustain success, and I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm just being honest. Like, there's a plan that's in place that'll build us success for far beyond the first play, first game, first season, first year, first decade. Hopefully, it's going to be something that builds us success for a long time. And I think for us as coaches, the play that we'll run that first play in our opener will be the one that gives us the greatest chance to have success. And that'll be based on, could be a variety of different things. What's the health of our team at that point? Who's the strength of our roster? What does our defensive opponent give us? What's the weather like on that day? What time is the game at? All kinds of different things that factor into what you can do to have success. I think if you try to pre-plan or coordinate something that's really false, then you're going to get false results in the end. So we'll try to base everything we do on reality.
You mentioned, I feel like I've done a deep dive into Bret Bielema on the, being Bret Bielema video over the past week or two. And as I look at this, you talk about goals a lot and setting goals. How do you, what goals do you set, short-term, long-term? How do we get Illinois to a program where it's, back when you played against Illinois, they were winning. That was the last time actually they've won 8 or more games back-to-back seasons. How do you get to that? What goals do you set? How do you achieve those?
Brad, it's and they have to be in a variety of different areas, right? So really from day one when I got here, there was 4 aspects that I concentrated on daily. Was the recruitment of the current roster, the recruitment of future rosters, the recruitment of our staff, and then for us, just outreach. All right. So outreach within the university, outreach within the alumni, outreach within the football alumni, outreach to our fan base, outreach to the state of Illinois. For us to be able to sustain success and be a program that our state is proud of, we have to represent our state, right? We have to represent what the people of Illinois are all about. You have obviously the Chicagoland area, you have Central Illinois, Western Illinois, Southern Illinois, and everywhere in between. And what you have to do is build something that appeals to that crowd, right? So that they can have excitement during the course of the week and show up on Saturdays, either physically in the stands or through support on the social media or on TV, whatever it is. It's going to take all of us. So I think that's been an overriding theme is, I do have short-term goals. I do have long-term goals. One of the things that we've talked about repeatedly is to own this state and to put ourselves in a position that if we can get the best players in the state to stay and be Illini, we're going to be in a better place. So that's a huge emphasis on us on a daily basis. Today, our coaches take it's the second week. Next week, we'll wrap it up where we've reached out to every high school coach in the state of Illinois and let them know that we're here. And it's not just a one-stop shop, right? This is going to be something that we continue for years to come, because we have heard from coaches like, yeah, I've heard this before. We'll see how long this lasts, but our proof has to be in reality, right? We have to tell them and show them what we're going to do daily. I would say really long-term goals, what Josh and I have talked about is really, we want to try to win and do things now and do things in a way that we can get wins. But on the same account, I'm not going to skip a step to get where we need to be, right? We want to have sustained success for years to come. As we film this podcast today, it's the 5-year anniversary of Josh's opening press conference. And, I wasn't there for the first 5, but I plan on being there for a lot more than the next 5, and for us to do that, we have to build it in a way that we can have success year after year.
Is there you had some time, and obviously you were extremely successful at Wisconsin, 3 straight Rose Bowls and did well in the Big Ten, and you go to Arkansas, and to be honest, you actually turned that program around a little bit and had some success. Last year maybe wasn't what you expected, but did you learn more from maybe winning at Wisconsin or struggling a little bit at Arkansas? Which kind of taught you more about the college game here?
Brad, it's a great question. And obviously you always learn from your success, right? So the success I had at Wisconsin was also deeply rooted in what I learned as a player, what I learned as an assistant coach, what I learned as a coordinator. I was able to work under Hayden Fry, Kirk Ferentz, Bill Snyder, and Barry Alvarez. Those are great mentors to be around. And then obviously been with Coach Belichick now and Joe Judge in the NFL, and great mentors again. But the part that I think defines all of us, man, is we are defined more by our moments of adversity than we are by our moments of success. If we just sit around and, smell the roses and feel great about everything when we're winning, that's going to be one thing. But it's when you get knocked down and you got to get back up. 12 years as a head coach, I've went to 10 bowl games out of 12. The only 2 I didn't go to were my first year at Arkansas and my last year. In between those 2 years at Arkansas, I had 3 straight years of bowl games with two back-to-back bowl victory wins. Could have had a third, but ball didn't bounce the right way. Could have managed things a little bit better. But you learn from those moments for sure. And when people are firing shots at you and you have to live to be humble, that's a great learning moment for all of us. And to come full circle now, to be in my home state, to be in an environment that when people mention different cities and towns and programs, I know exactly where they are. A lot of times I know people that have been in those programs. The last several weeks to be on recruiting phone calls and talking to parents who, a parent might have went to Illinois State. Well, my sister went to Illinois State. She was a Redbird, right? So they are from different parts of the state that went to areas that I know in different parts of the country, right? So there's a lot of similarities and familiarity with people now that makes this job a lot easier, and I think very exciting to be a part of.
As we talk about, replenishing your roster and filling these needs, and you're really focused, I know, on 2022. Recruiting obviously is much different right now in the middle of a pandemic. Last time you were in college, it was obviously you could have kids on campus and you can do it differently. How much of a change has it been for you over from the last time you were in college with all the Zooms and also even the transfer portal? There's like 3,000 kids or something in the transfer portal.
Yeah, it's a different world for sure. The first is, here this room I sit in. This is my Zoom room, right? It's a professional camera. I need as much help as I can get. All right. So we have a lighting and sound and everything. So when we do these Zoom calls, they're effective and they're good. We're not just looking at a coach sitting at a desk and, with a bunch of stuff behind him, right? I want them to believe and see what we're talking about is Illinois football. We'll take kids on Zoom visits where we go through the entire Smith Center and showcase what a great building that this is, what Josh and his people and donations were able to bring in and build us here in our Smith Center. I think the other thing that you mentioned, obviously, recruiting is a totally different animal. So when I first got into recruiting in 1993, I guess it was, as a GA at the University of Iowa, it was traditional high school recruiting, maybe an occasional junior college recruiting, but for the most part, high school. Now I've designed a recruiting wing that is really totally different, really even to a lot of our competition. And it was driven a lot off of what I learned in the NFL. In the NFL, you have 2 personnel groupings. You have basically the NFL personnel director and the college personnel director. NFL looks at all NFL players of all 31 teams, 32 teams total, that looks at every player on those rosters and how they can help them through free agency or, any type of trades, anything like that. And then you have the draft guys through college football, right? So the way the game has evolved now, our recruiting department is set up really in an overall executive director, Pat Hamilton, who will kind of see personnel and recruiting. But then I also have a college personnel director who will oversee all college personnel, transfer portal, grad transfers, junior college transfers, and traditional transfers. And then I'll have a high school personnel director who will basically, guide and oversee the evaluation of all high school athletes in the state of Illinois, but also across the country and out of this country as well. So it's set up like an NFL model. A lot of the things that we're doing are trying to be a little bit more NFL friendly to allow them to come in and recruit our players, but also allow our players to grow and understand what it's going to be like at the next level. And it's a recruiting tool that we use. Patrick Pearson, who will work with our guys both during the recruitment of them out of high school or college, through the development of them in our program, and then the release of them into the NFL or in their life, that works on their social marketing, their name, image, and likeness, all the things that allow them to be who they are in today's world as we know it, which is a little bit different.
You mentioned the Smith Center. Obviously, that's a huge recruiting tool for Illinois. It's a great facility. Is there any other, like, if you had to make changes, upgrades that you would like to see to Memorial Stadium? I know you haven't maybe had as much time to look at that thus far. Are there some other changes that you're kind of look for down the road to bring everything else up to the level of that Smith Center?
Well, there's one easy answer to that. Yeah, it's one column. It's called the win column, right? If you win games, good things happen, right? Everybody likes to associate themselves with people that win, and that has to be a priority for us. We have to put ourselves in a position to win, and before we can do that consistently, we got to win in the classroom. We got to win on the recruiting world, and just a simple fact like that, like high school recruiting, it's anxious and it's eager for my coaches to come in, and they're going to compete with everybody in the Big Ten, and we're not going to back down from anybody, but you can't ignore 40, 50 years of history, people that have been able to do things in the short-term history that we haven't been able to do. But one area that we can compete on right away is probably grad transfers. A lot of times grad transfers are looking for opportunities to get on the field in areas where maybe you haven't had it the right way in recruiting, or you've been leaned up by injuries. But, those guys, we've been able to take kids from programs that, have just won national championships, guys that have been in a Power 5 championship games, guys that have been in the college football playoffs year in and year out. And that brings culture into your program right away of winning and expectations on how you need to prepare to win, and let guys know, hey, you may thought you were doing things right, but look what that got you. This is what you need to do. So there's a lot of things that go into what we're doing here right now. Don't need to give away any family trade secrets, but I can tell you there's a daily plan and a daily agenda to get us where we need to be tomorrow, so that we can make sure that if tomorrow's good, then Friday's got a really good chance to be even better. And if we just keep stacking days, if we keep our agendas at a premium, that this is what we're working, this is what we're focusing on today. I asked our guys to jump into an 8-week training program of mental, social, and physical development. That's what they're concentrating on. Once we get through that, then we'll go into a 5-week phase of spring football where we'll practice 3 days a week. We'll meet 3 days a week. They'll have a day of recovery on the back end. So if they can just learn how to keep stacking days and get where they want to be, I think good things can happen.
Yeah, transfer portal obviously is a big component of this recruiting now. And you've added some guys who can come in and help you win immediately. Do you still have openings now? Are you still looking at guys? Because there's more guys popping in there daily, and I know you've added a few, but do you still have openings for those spots?
Absolutely. We purposely kept a couple back of our initials so that we could have somebody that we needed to take immediately. There's always the opportunity to sign guys to the blue shirt or a player that we can't put on scholarship until the beginning of next fall. So we're always looking at ways to creatively manage our roster. One of the things that the NFL did teach you is it's a moving roster, and I think that has to be taken into effect here. I'm not oblivious to the fact as a head coach, listen, I got a lot of super seniors back, a lot of juniors, sophomores, freshmen that came back who could have gone out and used a one-year transfer rule with COVID, but I'm not going to be, again, oblivious to the fact that we're not going to make things easy, right? They're just beginning to scratch the surface. This workout they just went through this past Saturday as a team was their most intense workout, got a lot of reactions. We wanted to physically challenge them in ways and then make them communicate with one another. We had leaders that pointed to certain groups that when they got tired, they could either continue to lead their group or act as an individual. Some succeeded, some failed, all right? But to get them where we need to be, we need them to be at their best when it's at its worst. And for us to do that, we're going to put kids in uncomfortable situations. And some of them are going to tap out, all right? If they tap out, then they're going to move on to the next opportunity. Then we'll find next man up, all right? For those that choose to stay, they're going to build something that'll reward them not only in the near future here, but in the lifetime they have in front of them.
Yeah, you're the same age I am. You know, I'm 51, so we can relate there. Grew up in Illinois in that time period. But when I started playing, you know, I was basketball and baseball. Analytics were not as prevalent when we were younger. You know, it was kind of old school stuff. Over the course of your coaching career, obviously it's changed. It's become more analytics driven. How have you evolved in looking at analytics over the past 20 years?
You know, a little bit of everything. So I've always been fascinated with numbers. Thought I was going to be an accountant growing up, but as soon as I jumped into, I did well in financial accounting, but cost accounting got me. So the more numbers got complicated, the further I wanted to remove myself. So, but analytics during my first coaching job at Wisconsin, and then also at Arkansas, began to evolve a little bit more. And then in the NFL, really taught me a lot more about how to apply the analytics. But analytics are also individual choices of what you want to see and what you believe in. A lot of times these guys carrying around these magic books and talk about the analytics. Those are always good when they work, but what they don't talk about is when they don't work. And that's what I've seen bring people to their knees. I've seen coaches get fired this year in the NFL. Some people that really believe in the analytical march that were the flag carriers for those things that have cost them their jobs. You know, so I think you got to constantly understand what analytics mean, how they affect your team. What we talk a lot about is football 101, right? So I teach a class a couple times a week with our players that talk nothing about X's and O's, but more about words, phrases, and situations that will make you a better football player. And I think that's the part that has probably drawn me closer to a roster more than anything. They're just a sponge for what we've been giving them. I'll show them samples from their film from a year ago. We looked at the national championship game. We looked at the college football playoffs. We looked at the Super Bowl. We did a preview of the scouting report for the Super Bowl on the Friday before that Sunday. And I remember I'm sitting there watching the Super Bowl, and I talked about the way they needed to rush Tom Brady. And early in the game, I got a text from Hightower, who's a wide receiver for us, about pass rush. You know, so here's a wide receiver that's thinking about pass rush, and you get guys thinking about football, talking about football. Usually, good things can happen.
Yeah, that's great stuff. It's very interesting. How you, when you were at Arkansas, you talked about how one time, you won a game, and I remember watching the ESPN thing. Of course, in my deep dive into Bret Bielema, I saw you beat LSU 17-0, and I think you were on. They were talking to you about it, and they said they knew you were going to win, and you kind of felt you were going to win going into that week because, and your quote was, "I know my team." And at that point, you had gotten to that point where you knew your team. How long is it going to take you to know this team before you get to know them?
You know, I don't know if there's ever a time on it, to be honest, Brad. Like you first have to get to know them individually, right? So every roster is made up of 110 to 120 players individually, and you have to know how those players act and how they respond in adverse moments before you truly know who they are. Because again, everybody has a persona when everything's going right, but when it gets tough, that's when you need to find out what people are made of. So I'm gonna have to put them in those moments. They're gonna have to live through them. I also think about the first time I ever won a Big Ten championship. I was sitting in the locker room. We had been defeated at the end of a game on really a Hail Mary type situation. And I told our guys leaving the locker room when we got done with the game, I said, listen, before we played the game today, I thought I knew we had a Big Ten championship team. But today, leaving the locker room with a defeat, I know we have a Big Ten championship team. And we went on to win one. And I think that is part of being a head coach, that you have to see beyond what's just in front of you. You have to see where you're going to go and where you could possibly end up at, and get them. The truest definition of a coach is someone that can take a player to a place he's never been. And, if we can take a group in that same environment, that same feeling, and take a group of young men to a place they've never been, that's going to give us great results, right? I don't know what it means. I don't know exactly how many wins, but if we all can finish the year next year, if me as a head coach, Ryan Walters as a D coordinator, Tony Peterson as an offensive coordinator, all my assistant coaches, every player on our roster, if we played and coached the best year of our life, there's going to be a lot of good things that have happened. So that's what we got to try to do.
There, looking at and kind of switch gears, talk college football in general. There's been some talk about a lack of parity when you have, it's like the Alabama Clemson Invitational every year, and how can you change that? I mean, obviously, maybe getting Illinois there would be a cool way to change that. Get one more team in there, but how do you change? What's college football need to do to try to make it more competitive?
Well, I do see the comparison and why people say that. I think there's some built-in advantages to schools across the country that, because of what they've established over the period of a long time, they've been able to get certain recruiting advantages, certain things that may come a little bit easier to them than other places. But those are just things to talk about. What you got to do is start to work about it, right, and do things about it. I think the part that's unique in college football, everybody said, what's the biggest difference between college football and NFL football? In NFL, you evaluate and then you select your players. In college football, you evaluate and then recruit and hope they select you. So there's a dramatic difference there. Literally at some programs, they can recruit and develop, anywhere from 5 to 10 first-round players in every draft or in every recruiting class. In the NFL, you only get one, usually one, maybe two first-round picks if you got a trade or whatnot. So for those of us that aren't able to be at that same level right now, we got to recruit and develop and bring aboard players that are best for our program to develop and build and see where it goes. Ready-made is not going to be the answer at Illinois right now, but we can definitely put ourselves in a position that every year we get closer to that, and that's what we're working on.
Is there so now that's some good football talk, and it's important, obviously, as football coach. But we got to get to some really important stuff. You've had 60 days in Champaign. Have you had any really good pizza food? I mean, what's been good since you've gotten into town? I mean, what have you enjoyed?
Well, I've really enjoyed everything. I just haven't, because of COVID. And here's what, the thing that I'm dealing with. Literally every day there's different tasks every day that need to be followed through on a daily basis. So, if I get caught in either contact tracing or get COVID itself, like, it would knock me out of the building for a period of 10 to 14, maybe even longer. And so I've been very cautious. I literally come to work, get tested every day, and then go crash at the Hyatt where they got me locked up at. Just it's been awesome because there I've been able to bring in also different personnel, different hires that I've been able to bring in during the course of the day. I usually get back to the hotel and the lady, 8, 9, and I can bring them in and talk to them if it's somebody I've never met before. So the next day when I interview them, it's not meeting them for the first time. So it's really been ideal for that. Haven't really been in the community. My wife and I bought a lot last week. We're going to build a home here. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll start breaking grounds with Hallbreck Homes that I'm just excited to lay some roots down and build a house that I got 2 beautiful girls that hopefully we can call this their home for all the way through their educational career. It's just something that my wife and I have been looking for an opportunity to settle into a great college town and a great environment. And I think this is what we've been waiting for and hoping for. My babies were in town this past weekend, so we were able to kind of enjoy that a little bit. But again, just to protect them, haven't been around. Have had some local deliveries, right? So everybody's recommending different pizza joints. They can see my size, like I might realize I might like to eat a little bit. I'd say the highlights have been some maize delivery, or some people grabbing some maize, Mexican food, variety of different pizzas. Josh put me on right away the bowling alley pizza, which was pretty good. Then I didn't think you go to a bowling alley to get pizza, but it's been pretty live. And then really just a variety of different things. A couple of the country clubs have brought in lunch for us a couple times for coaches. So there's just a lot of people that love to give support, and it's part of what makes Champaign great. I've had a lot of former players that I worked with in the NFL. They shot me right away their favorite restaurants to maybe go eat or be a part of. So it's kind of been one for the history.
Yeah, there's a lot of good eateries there. I don't know if it compares with, being in a big city, but it does a pretty good job for a small town. You mentioned your daughters. I'll tell you, as a father of 3 daughters myself, there's nothing like that. It's really a unique thing to have, 3 girls, and being a girl dad, it's pretty cool. So enjoy it. Mine are old, so older. So but it's fun watching them grow up. As you kind of go now, important, you're building a house. So we got another important question. Is it more important to have the awesome pool outdoor space or the man cave? Which is the most important part of that?
I've kind of evolved, right? So I had children later in life because early in life I didn't have a wife, right? So that's prohibited children. So I didn't meet Jen until I believe I was in my 5th or 6th year at Wisconsin. We got married my last year there, and then obviously our time together in Arkansas. So I had the man cave at my first place, but that was a bachelor pad that has been remodeled now into a family home, and got a little bit. Recruiting is such a huge aspect now, so our home has some great elements to it that we'll build into it that we put on paper now. We just got to make it become reality. We're actually going to hold off on the pool until our girls are a little bit older. I've just seen and heard too many things that I don't like about having little kids when they're on pool. So I love a pool. I was a lifeguard early in life. So we've got it all laid out. It's just not going to get both know how to swim. So we'll hold off on that. But I do have an Illini wing that it'll be kind of a huge office area for me to be able to functionally. Also, the Zoom world has taught you can do a lot of things now remotely, in especially during certain times of the year. So I have an office set up that'll have all my XOs, video, recruiting, all the tools, but also then when you can have recruits on campus to your home, allow them to see, I got a Lombardi trophy that I want to show off, a couple Big Ten trophies that I want to show off. I want to be able to show off eventually the hardware we win here at Illinois. But that is right adjacent to a cabana that we set up for the pool use eventually when that comes into effect as well.
So the answer is both, right? You will just
Both,
start with the man
yes.
cave. We'll add the outdoor pool setting later. Is there as you kind of as you look at the position grouping, real thing. Somebody asked this question, like, what if you had to pick one position grouping that's the most important for you? What is it? And after offensive line, what's second? So as you kind of look at these things, what position grouping is the most important?
Well, I think without a doubt, offensively, the O-line starts the foundation of what you build, right? Like that house we were just talking about, you start building the second floor bedroom, right? You start in the foundation in the basement and build it up from there. So O-line play and D-line play is essential for our growth as a program. That's got to be primary number one. But I think offensively, the trigger man is going to be very important, right? We got to find someone who fits and believes and molds into what we believe in offensively, right? So we want to make sure we're able to advance the football. We got to be able to possess the football at the right time. We can't beat ourselves, right? I stress to our players all the time, more games are lost than won. And by that, I just mean that a lot of times, guys, people give away the game before they actually have the other team win it. And we can't do that. We just work too hard. Too many people sacrifice too many things to give games away. So we have to have a quarterback that can handle the game. But also, I learned this one from a couple of quarterbacks in my past. It's when quarterbacks need to be at their best when everything else is at its worst around them. So it's a 3rd and 6. You got a pattern called. You got to read. It's not there. Defense defended it. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to create a play? How are you going to make something happen? Defensively, it'll start from the up front back, the D-line play. But I think it's very important for us in today's world defensively. We have to have corners. We have to have corners or secondary players that can make corners play better. As a primary recruiting asset, right? The signal caller on defense is always your middle linebacker, so you got to have someone there that can communicate. And then I would tell you the big factor too, and it's not just a coaching cliche with me, special teams are everything, right? So our offensive and defensive coordinator is important. Ben Miller will run our special teams. I tell you, to have a punter, a kicker, a snapper, and a holder that can perform under pressure is going to be at a premium, all right? So for us to win those tight games, to win those windows that we should win, we have to be able to perform as a specialist group in key moments. And that's got to be a big part of what we're building here as well.
So all right. So we'll wrap up here. I'm coming over. Bret Bielema, your house is finished. All right. I'm coming over. And I noticed from your videos that you're a foodie. You like to cook.
Mm-hmm.
You like to cook. It was like every Thursday night. That was like kind of your time. And then, things like, so what am I having when I come over to Bret Bielema's house? What are you making for me here in your new kitchen?
I'm in the kitchen. We'll probably do some type of medley vegetable, anything that green is good. My mom taught me right, and love different sautés, stuff like that. But I would probably find my way to the back of the house, out to the grill, and that's where the real work gets done. My wife loves her salmon, so we'll have probably a little salmon on the side for her. I'll probably go with a ribeye myself, but all the accessories is what I kind of love. I love to make a tomato, mozzarella, balsamic, white onion spring salad. I think is always awesome. Like, I like the accessories. I know I look like a meat and potatoes guy, but I'm more about the accessories. But it's also about who you're with. You get invited to my house, you're going to be a good dude, because I don't let a lot of people in that don't believe in what I believe in. So I think it's about the brotherhood and the fellowship, but it's about the people you're around.
That's good. That's good. So that's good to know. I like all those things. So if I ever get the chance, then I know I'm gonna eat well. So I actually saw the mozzarella, tomato, onion.
Yeah. You saw the dinner. Yeah.
I saw the dinner, so that was good. That's it. Now, one thing I'll tell you, one thing that we do, and I'll wrap this up. I'll give you, and I know this is a segue something. One thing we get all this snow on the ground. One thing that my family does, and I know this is relate to you a little bit, is every day when there's snow on the ground, my wife gets up and makes cinnamon rolls for my kids when there's snow on the ground. I know that has kind of a personal connection for you. So that's kind of our tradition. And so, you know,
That's awesome.
so I just wanted to give you that one. And hey, I really appreciate you coming on. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you got to get back out on the recruiting trail and find some more, or the recruiting Zoom trail, and find some more kids and to get this program rolling. Really appreciate you. Very excited. I know Illini Nation is really excited to have you on board, and we're really excited for the future.
Appreciate it, Brad. Thanks for having me on, brother. ILL.
I.